Hi everyone, this is attorney Justinian Lane of Justinian Associates, and I'm here today with
Dustin Fox for Justinian Associates.
We're Austin personal injury attorneys. We're going to talk today about a few topics that might be affecting the Texas population in the months and years to come. First thing to talk about today is I see that the Texas Legislature might be considering a bill to allow something called motorcycle lane splitting. Dustin's been riding motorcycles for years, so he's probably the best guy to talk to us about that. What can you tell us about lane splitting?
So basically what lane splitting is, it's kind of a conundrum. You're actually not literally splitting the lanes where you're going over the bumps. You're kind of sharing a lane with the vehicles in the lane itself. It's used like whenever there's traffic jams and congestion. So it's a way for the motorcycles to keep flowing and help eliminate some of the congestion.
I gotcha. And what do you think about this bill? Is it a good idea to allow lane splitting?
I personally think it helped out a lot. That was one of the main reasons why I actually rode motorcycles. I lived in San Diego, California, where it's just traffic is horrendous, and going 10 to 12 miles could take anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes. Whereas if you're allowed the lane split, I can get there in 15, 20 minutes. And what's different about the California lane splitting and this one is California's law specifically just says as long as it's done safely.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very broad. So the CHP, the California Highway Police out there, they can basically determine on their own whether or not it was done safely. Whereas the Senate bill that you mentioned, 228, it actually says that they cannot go more than 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, and it has to be done no less than 20 miles per hour. So basically the motorcycles could not reach above 25 miles per hour here in Texas.
Gotcha. So this isn't something that people would be doing on the freeway then?
Well, they would be doing it on the freeway if it was completely congested. So they can't be traveling more than 25 miles an hour on the freeway. So yeah, you're not going to have someone flying by you at 60 miles an hour. Great.
And I know that some people think that it's not safe. What are your thoughts on that?
A little bit of A, a little bit of B. I remember when I used to lane split, you'd have folk, just suddenly cut across because, they think that the right lane's going faster than the left lane and vice versa. So there are some dangers to it, but, if you're a motorcycle rider, really the only danger is to you. And so it's kind of like the assumption of the risk. If you feel like you want to get somewhere faster, you assume the risk that someone might pull out in front of you.
Sure, and you say the danger is mostly to you, and that's because motorcycle accidents, obviously the laws of physics, that larger, heavier vehicle usually is going to win in an accident. And with a motorcycle, those things, there's not a lot of glass and steel to protect you, really. So.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you're limited to your helmet if you choose to wear one here in Texas, your jacket, your gloves. And honestly, I see a lot of motorcycle riders who don't choose to protect themselves. So, go ahead.
Yeah, did you wear all the safety
gear?
gear?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was lane splitting, I wanted to make sure if I got into an accident and laid down my bike, I was going to walk away. So I wore my helmet, my jacket, and my gloves at almost all times.
And you had a couple of accidents, right?
Yes, I actually had 3.
What was the worst one?
The worst one was back in 2012 while I was in law school. Yeah, someone blew a red light in downtown San Diego. I saw him out of the corner of my eye, but I ended up hitting the front of his hood, end over end, landed on my back, luckily.
Would you, obviously you're okay today, do you think you would have been if you hadn't been wearing a helmet?
No, I actually recall my head bouncing off the cement. Like once I actually landed, So
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if I'd be alive today, honestly.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I know. We help people whether or not they're wearing helmets or not in motorcycle accidents. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Does it make a difference as to who's at fault if somebody's wearing a helmet or not?
No. It doesn't matter who's at fault. Unlike seatbelt laws, where they can actually assign a proportion to your, if you weren't wearing a seatbelt and you got ejected, they can assign a proportion to your fault, your negligence. Whereas I don't think they've introduced that yet for motorcycle riders.
Well, that's definitely something that might come up on the horizon. I know that a lot of insurance companies and other people, the defendants who get sued a lot, were able to push to show that if you're in a car accident and you're not wearing your seatbelt, the jury can say that you are a percentage at fault for your own injuries because everybody should be wearing a seatbelt. So we'll still take a case if somebody's not wearing a seatbelt, but it's possible that if the jury awarded them $100,000 and they were found to be 20% at fault, that $100,000 would go down to $80,000. So that's always something to be worried about. One of many reasons to wear a seatbelt. I would imagine at some point a case like that might get up for motorcyclists.
I can't imagine why it wouldn't. It's a very similar concept, and it's probably likely more dangerous, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It would seem that way. And I would guess with the makeup of the legislature and the courts now that if that issue ever is taken up, they would probably have the same ruling on that.
Yeah, they probably have the same ruling, especially with the helmet. But I mean, there's other factors. I mean, if you're lane splitting and you get into a car accident, you may not be entirely at fault. There's going to be several factors to consider. I mean, maybe you weren't nearly as at fault as the person who jerked out in front of you without signaling, for instance. So there may be another way to apportion fault.
And I've never ridden a motorcycle, so when somebody comes to us in a motorcycle accident, Dustin almost always is the one to interview them and talk about their case, because he's actually going to know the right questions to ask. So if you've been in a motorcycle accident and want to talk to somebody that would be able to ask you the right questions and speak intelligently about whether or not you can be helped, Dustin would certainly be available to do that.
Yeah. In fact, I settled 3 of my own cases prior to even becoming an attorney.
Right. So yeah, we're happy Dustin doesn't ride anymore, because he did have 3 accidents, but he settled them all on his own and learned a few things. I'm assuming by the time you settled your 3rd accident case, you were a little better at it than your first.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
My first motorcycle accident, I got a couple $100 because I thought I was smarter than attorneys and I wanted to do it myself. The second one, I got several thousand, but my 3rd one, I ended up getting policy limits. Granted, It was more serious of an injury, but I got $25,000 for it.
And Dustin mentioned something interesting about if you're smart enough to handle your own case, and certainly anybody can try and take a stab at their own case. But if you don't have the specialized training, how smart you are might not really matter as to the results that you get. So we always encourage anybody who's been injured in an accident to seek the help of an attorney.